We begin with breaking news. President Donald Trump has posted on his social media, Truth Social, saying that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead in the joint operations conducted by US and Israel. In that post on Truth Social, he goes on to say, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He goes on to say this is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of their IRGC, military and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. The president concludes by saying the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Latest comments there that are coming in from President Donald Trump on the joint operations being conducted by US and Israel. Let's now bring in Eric Ham, CTV News US political analyst, for more. Eric, great to see you. The president now reacting to what's happening in Iran, confirming that Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Your takeaway?
Well, if this is in fact true, this will be a major turning point in these ongoing strikes. We know that there have been retaliatory attacks by Iran. And while we know that there were 5 countries where these attacks were launched into, there was one country noticeably absent, and that was Saudi Arabia. And we know that the relationship, particularly between President Trump and the royal family, is very strong. In fact, I spoke to someone today who told me that if in fact Iran had actually struck Saudi Arabia, that would have actually been the beginning of potentially World War III. As it relates to the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei, what we are also hearing from many Republicans is that there was a lot of jitteriness and a lot of concern about these strikes when they were announced very early this morning. But if, in fact, these strikes did net the potential neutralization of the supreme leader, that actually gives them takes a lot of weight off of their shoulders and makes them feel and they believe that would be a very positive move going forward, particularly given that many Americans, quite frankly, simply do not want to see the United States bogged down in another potentially long and protracted war in the Middle East.
Eric, let's talk about the outcome. If Khamenei is actually dead, the supreme leader of Iran, we know that the president had made it extremely clear in the video they posted last night about the agendas, the goals of these strikes were to remove this particular regime, take down the nuclear program as well as the missile program of Iran. It seems as though, according to what he's saying at the moment, with the supreme leader dead, what will it mean for some of those goals and the agendas of the president?
Well, clearly, the administration, along with Israel, certainly has made regime change the top of the list. And in fact, we know that these strikes have targeted key individuals that they believe will certainly neutralize this regime that has been in power for more than 4 decades. And if, in fact, that does happen, while that will certainly be a major win for the president to achieve such objectives in such a very short time, now becomes the actual very difficult work of actually putting a government in place that the U.S. government believes would be palatable to U.S. and American interests.
Okay, sorry for that. Eric, also I wanted to check with you about what we are hearing in terms of the president's latest post on Truth Social, when he goes on to say, and I'm going to quote him here one more time, he says, the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objectives. When we look at this language, what is the response we are hearing from, for example, members of the Congress on this particular propaganda or agenda of the administration, Trump administration?
Well, first of all, we have to remember this is a war of choice. This is a war of preemption. This is a war of regime change. This is not the United States on the defensive. This is not the United States being attacked. And right now, this is not even the United States national security interests being directly threatened. And so because the president is doing this, there does need to be some level of authorization for these attacks. In fact, we've already heard from some Republicans who have stated that they believe that these are unauthorized attacks and that the president needs to actually come to Congress to get approval for what is actually taking place. We know, in addition to that, we know there is a UN Security Council meeting that is also taking place regarding these strikes between in Iran by United States and Israel. And so clearly what we're seeing here is while the United States under President Donald Trump is, in fact, or appears to be achieving its objective, I think the larger question that President Donald Trump needs to answer is how, in fact, does he plan to actually install a government that will be less hostile to U.S. interests as well as to the neighbors in the region. That is still, I think, on the table and what this administration is going to have to answer. And more importantly, the president is going to have to answer these questions directly to Congress as well.
Speaking of regime change, Eric, we have heard from the president himself in that video, that 8-minute-long video, as well as the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, talking about how it's the people of Iran who need to take control of their government. This is the message time and again both the leaders are hammering out for the people, that this could be their only chance because they're seeing how this particular regime in Iran is extremely weakened. And the fact if Ayatollah Khamenei is dead, as the president is saying at the moment, it further, of course, weakens whatever is left in Iran for now. But talking about the situation within that country, if there are hundreds of thousands who've opposed this regime, Eric, we've also seen hundreds of thousands who have come in support of this regime when we talk about counter-protests in Iran. So let's talk about the possibility when they say, okay, go and take control of the government. It's really not going to be that easy for the people of Iran to go ahead and do that.
That's so true. And it's very surprising when the president talks like this, because it leaves it very open-ended in terms of the people itself now tasked with doing this. And what we're seeing here from President Donald Trump, from the U.S. military, from Israel, is that they are actually clearing the way and paving the way, so to speak. But nevertheless, we know Iran is not like Venezuela. It is not like Iraq. We're talking about a nation that does have layers upon layers of leadership. And of course, we know Iran does have military capabilities to be able to project its own power, especially in the region, not only directly, but also through proxies. And so the fact that the president is not actually laying out a plan or has addressed or spoken about others that the United States is working with to actually help the people on the ground set up a government that will be more democratic, that will provide more freedoms to the people of Iran, it does beg the question, is there going to be a gaping hole? And does that actually lead to a situation where you have terrorist organizations such as ISIS and other groups to actually come in and fill those holes? Right. And right now, we just have not heard the president speak about that because, again, we're talking about a nation, again, very different. And President Donald Trump is not a president who has experience with nation building. And so if that piece is not part of the equation, this could actually mean a much longer than expected engagement than what the president might actually think.
Indeed. I mean, talking about nation building, we have examples of what has happened in the country of Iraq, what has happened in Afghanistan. These are examples that we're seeing unfold in front of us, how successful or not that they have been. And like you were saying, Iran, of course, is a very, very different story, a much larger nation as well. And it's not going to be the same as other countries. But we've spoken about the support or not the president has within the U.S. Eric, let's take a moment and talk about the reaction that's coming in from several of the allies. We know, of course, that Iran retaliated. We have a map here as well. You spoke about it. We'll bring that map up about the retaliation, Iran strikes in the region. There are several assets we have discussed that the U.S. has. And you can see here whether it was the UAE, whether it was Qatar, whether it was the other parts, or Kuwait, or even Jordan for that matter. Israel, of course, being one of the key targets. We've seen Iran attack these regions. But about the support that the U.S. president has from his allies on this operation. What do we know of that in terms of Canada, UK, France, and other countries? What are we seeing, Eric?
Well, again, this is where this could get very tricky for the United States and for President Donald Trump in particular, because outside of the United States and Israel, there are no other allies, or there is no coalition of the willing that is coming forward to actually assist or be a part of this operation. The president did not engage with European partners, NATO, the European Union. We do not know of any engagement with G7 countries. Again, it is not the United States that is actually leading the discussions or leading the meeting at the UN Security Council. So this is, again, an operation that is taking place in a vacuum. And we know that Iran has its proxies in the region. And aside from those very large military strikes that we saw earlier today, we already know that Hezbollah has already stepped up its attacks in the Red Sea, and it's likely they will continue. And again, without the support of a broader coalition of nations outside of the support that we're seeing from these comments, this is going to be a possible engagement that will require the United States to actually do most of the heavy lifting. And very quickly, I'll also add, while we know that the United States currently is engaged in airstrikes, there has never, and I repeat, never has there ever been a time where a nation has completely succumbed just through airstrikes. And so we don't know if the president is prepared for a ground invasion to put actual boots on the ground, U.S. personnel in Iran. But if in fact he wants to see the people of Iran actually go forward with creating their own government, they're going to need that assistance, which means they're going to require U.S. personnel on the ground. Yeah. And right now, we don't know if the president is prepared to make that investment as well.
Yeah, good point. And of course, this is a developing story. We're keeping a close eye on all that's happening in the region, the reaction that's coming in from the White House, from Israel. But for the moment, Eric Ham, CTV News U.S. political analyst, joining us, making sense of it all. Eric, thank you so much for the moment.
You bet. Thank you.